That was Michael Jackson, Remember the Time. Now, you do not have to be watching the George Floyd trial to know that drugs are a pervasive problem in the United States of America. Drugs are such a pervasive problem in the United States of America that now the country has decided to deal with this problem with compassion instead of convictions. At one point, when drugs were rampant in our community, the solution was to lock us away, to break up families, to give extraordinary amounts of time to people, to imprison them off drugs. It was a war on drugs, and we were the casualties. Drugs are a problem in this country right now, and now because a lot of people who are not black and brown, a lot of people from all stripes of life are having a problem coping with drugs. It's interesting that if you are watching the George Floyd trial, you know, one of the assertions that is made by the murderer, Derek Chauvin, or at least his attorney, is that the drugs contributed to the problem. I don't know about you, and I won't pretend like I'm a doctor, but I don't know that the standard procedure for a person suffering from a drug overdose, I don't know that that's a man with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Drugs are so pervasive that many police municipalities, they drive around with Narcan shots to give somebody when they're ODing. Now, if you don't think 9 minutes and 29 seconds is a long time to do anything, try holding your breath. Hell, try, even if it's something you like, try having sex for 9 minutes and 29 seconds all the time. It is a very long time. And whether you're healthy or not, whether you're on drugs or not, whether you are strong or not, if some man has his knee on your neck for that long, chances are you will not live. But the specter of drugs is being brought up as if America is not suffering from it on the whole. Hunter Biden, the president's son, is an admitted drug addict and suffers with that malady. Rush Limbaugh was an admitted drug addict and suffered with that malady. Why is it now all of a sudden, and I didn't see any of them getting choked to death or being called or their histories being called up to assail them? Because we have accepted the fact that drugs are a pervasive problem in our communities, that they have run rampant. We are we're finding ways to deal with them because so many people from so many walks of life are dealing with this pervasive, pernicious issue. It is a horrible thing. And it's no less horrible when a young man, a young black man, is stricken with this disease. It is no less a disease, no less a malady. And you know what? We don't give people who are drug addicts what we don't do anymore, or haven't. It isn't our standard procedure now to jail them. We have compassion. We don't malign them. We call them. I remember when Donald Trump brought up Hunter Biden and his drug problem during the debate. No one derided him because everybody knows this is such a common problem. All families are dealing with them. Hunter Biden, Rush Limbaugh, to name a few famous people who have dealt with drugs, and none of them had a knee on their necks for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Drugs are a problem, but never before in our country's history have they been dealt with the way that was. When is the procedure to never check a man's pulse? When is the procedure to not roll him over his side and to see if he's alive or to render aid? That had nothing to do with drugs, and drugs are pervasive and pernicious. We all know that. That had everything to do with a man grasping that straw and trying to hook up with an assessment of who we are as black people. Well, you know how they are. They're on drugs. You know they're super strong. You know you have to watch them all the time. Even when the ambulance came to check on George Floyd, he still had his knee on his neck. Still. Yes, drugs are bad. Yes, he may have been on them, but nobody generally is given the death penalty for being a drug addict, something we now accept as a sickness. But there's something even more pernicious and something more pervasive than the drug addicts, than the drug problem we have in America. And that is blindness. Blindness to the things that we see and know to be true. And it gets more and more apparent with each and every witness. When on earth have you seen so many police officers and representatives of the city testify against one of their own so forthrightly? When have you seen a chief of police do that? When have you seen lieutenants and captains and fellow co-workers and people in the medical profession? When have you seen them do it? There is no doubt that George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin, and that he's using the specter of drugs to color his intent. And drugs are pervasive in this country, in our communities, and in yours. It is so pervasive that now police officers drive around with life-saving shots to try to prevent you from overdosing. That's how pervasive it is. Our solution was to be locked up. So yes, he was on drugs, maybe. But that didn't have anything to do with him dying. He was walking around just fine. He was moving around just fine. He was talking just fine. What killed him was a man who was determined to do just that. Drugs are horrible, but blindness to what has happened in this brutality is equally as bad. That's a little note from his GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It is the D.L. Hughley Show.